Welcome back to our channel. My name is Rob from Vision PD. You guys are going to love this one. 20 minutes of me sweating and panting with a rake in my hands, and really I should just have rented a digger. Let's get to it. Cool, isn't it?
So where do we start? Clearing up, I suppose. The front area of the site has been where we have run all our services to both halves of the flats and the houses at the bottom, so it's had an open trench for almost the whole length of this project. We finally have them all in, water, electric, gas and internet for all 22 units, so we can get it looking a little more presentable. This video spans at least 2 years as we dip in and out, sometimes with good reasons such as letting the ground settle, some because I was occupied elsewhere. Because of the trenches, the soil has been moved around a lot, and what was at one point topsoil has been filled in and turned over several times, so it is now more of a hybrid, making it a little more stable. The front is too high and the side is too low, so we'll begin by moving that to there. This area will be the final parking on site, so we'll need something to make it sturdier. We used recycled hardcore for the bottom, the gravel area, which is broken bricks and stone waste, but when it shows through the gravel when the vehicles move it around, it doesn't look that good. So we went with limestone hardcore as the same colour as the gravel and will look much better underneath. We had to have it delivered in bags rather than by the lorry load, as the ground's still soft and I don't want it stuck around the side where I need to move these bags to. Have a look how mulchy the ground is under the forklift. We had a long spell of rain just as I was doing the job, which made the machinery sink and made it much tougher. It had the hidden benefit of mixing the stone in deeper than it otherwise would have, making it much stronger later on. It did swallow many more bags in the meantime though. To tidy things up, I wanted to set in the edges, as it may be a few months before I return to this job. I chose sleepers over any other materials as it matches the parking we did at the bottom of the site, and I can set them in faster on my own and move any if necessary. I also feel the final effect is softer and more natural than any concrete alternative. The upper layers of stone and gravel will come higher than the bottom of the sleepers, holding them in place, so the sand just helps me get them level for now. They're likely to shift over time with ground movement, rain and the odd person walking over them, so I decided to stake the ends in an attempt to keep them in place without having to resort to cement. A quick squirt of sealer on top should prevent a rust spot, more for aesthetics than any other reason. Let's make the border with my garden look a little more presentable, shall we? Gravel boards are meant for the bottom of fencing, but I find they look great used as a wall covering. They're harder wearing than feather edge and cheaper than tongue and groove, as well as matching the sleepers we're already using. I've pulled some damp-proof membrane up from the bottom before filling the hardcore to limit the water that may flow into the workshop that lies behind. I had a tub of bitumen laying around, and it makes me feel better about waterproofing and only takes 5 minutes to apply. Just make sure you take your watch off before using this stuff, as you know it'll end up flicking where you least want it. You can see the bottom right corner that I also painted the cut ends of the boards so no water soaks in. Let's whip up a quick garden gate. The party fence is looking a little worse for wear, and although it would last another year or two, it'll need replacing before I'm done here, so I decided to do it now while I'm on that area. Luckily, we have a timber yard next door, so getting hold of oak posts is relatively cheap and easy for us. I decided to go with a hardwood post as these will take some wind and will last a lot longer, meaning if the panels need replacing, these should hold up. Sometimes it's about peace of mind. We need to attach these posts to the retaining wall, and with the wind working against the post, the fixing method was keeping me up at night. Screws weren't going to cut it, and we're also dealing with an engineering brick which fights back when we use masonry screws. I needed as strong a fixture as possible, so chemical plugs seemed the best option. You can get a tube of chemical fixing, but taking into account the gun you need as well, it was cheaper to get these self-contained capsules. More on them later. I'm making my own fixings from threaded rod. You can purchase pre-cut and shaped bolts, but this gives me more flexibility.
So I have a thing for fixings, and these are some really cool fixings. They're from Plug, and they're chemical capsules which give a much better anchor than any of the mechanical fixing. Like the old bolts are just here, and although most of them were alright, I really don't want this fence post to wobble, so we thought we'd have a go with these. First time we tried, we didn't have much luck because I tried, as it showed on their video, threading it in. Had a word with my builders, and actually if you just whack it with a hammer, it bursts this capsule, spreading all of the glue inside the hole. At the end of this, I've cut a sharp edge on. I don't know if you needed to, but these are pretty hard, so I thought if I made a sharp point, then when I whack it with a hammer, push that in like that, sharp edge there, pop it in, you sort of hear it like squish as it first initially pops, and then I just keep hitting it until it hits the back of the hole. And because this is all going to stay in the wall anyway, it doesn't really matter if you damage the thread that's in there. Make sure there's a nut on the end though, because as you can see I'm whacking it and you'll never get a nut on here if you mar up the end of the thread. There we go. It says 45 minutes drying time, but I usually just leave it overnight because I don't want this pulling out because you'll have to redo it all. Plug fixings.
Setting the bottom ones in first gave me a datum to work to, while allowing the upper ones to be fitted with the post in place. It's a balancing act getting these jobs set up. On one hand, you could go all in and set the holes perfectly beforehand, hoping they all line up. On the other hand, you can custom fit every hole on every post. I find a happy medium is setting one line to work from and custom drilling the rest. I painted the side that will fit against the wall in order to prolong the life of the post, as this will be the area that has the hardest time drying. You need to make sure there's no dust in the holes, as these steps really are necessary. Skip it, and you know you'll be redoing it later. Giving the posts a good coat of sealer. On one of my YouTube research sessions, I discovered a great way of staining oak black is using acid and wire wool. Just so happens, grinding off the bolts must react with the sealer to do the same thing, leaving black marks on the posts, which took me a while to connect the dots as to where it had come from. It's exciting getting the lights wired up, even though it might be a while before they go on. Wayne really loved wiring up these armoured cables I cut too short. Time to spread the word about what we're doing, and this is the perfect place to do it.
Let the ground settle, ready for the winter. Good job really, because we had a ton of snow. We've got a break in the weather this week, so we've got a digger, and we've got the rest of the sleepers, so we're going to try and get all the parking done.
Time to actually lay out the parking. Here's to hoping the new sleepers aren't too much of a different colour to the older ones. The ground has really set nicely over the winter, which is great, but digging it, not so much. A lot of what I'll be doing from now on is as close to straight, level or square as possible. This line will help, but we have a transition as the ground ramps up. I can also dig the rest of the armoured cable in, making Wayne's job a lot easier. The ground is set nicely, but as expected, not so level, so while I'm setting the parking in, I'll sort that out as best I can. I don't know about you, but I can look at a surface for ages trying to see if it's level. I can use strings, levels, lasers and all sorts, and sometimes, just as Jimmy DeRessa says, if it looks level, then it is level. Also, top tip, never leave a level on something that isn't level, people will judge. I considered mitering the ends of the sleepers, but sometimes a bad attempt at making a job look better can look worse than leaving it as it was. I haven't got a saw large enough to do it in one pass and don't want it to look choppy. Time for a test. Well, I've hit. In moving some extra soil down the bottom, I realised this is a good chance to compact the sides of the sleepers back down. Also fancied an extra workout.
Have a look at what just arrived in the post. Hang on a minute, let me just set the ambience. That's such a disappointing sound. Okay, let's try one more time. There we go. Put ash all over my stickers now. Stickers to make sure that my tools stay my tools.
Now that we have our levels set, we need some extra stone to smooth things out. That makes 60 bags in total. Needed that bit over there anyway.
So somebody buried an internet cable just along the edge of this curb that I've got to remove. Yeah, that somebody was me. Thought it'd be the safest plot. Now I'm gonna have to use a tiny chisel and do this really gently. That's okay though, Rob, right? Because you still own the flat that the internet goes to. Nope.
I had better test these with an actual vehicle, in the hope that if I can fit, anything short of a Range Rover should fit. Yeah, it's tight, but I'll make that decision later. I set this curb with my brother as one of our first jobs. We used a mix way too rich in cement, so this is going to be fun breaking it back up. I don't know why this is satisfying, but it is. Let me ask you, how often do you walk your digger? This guy was a lifesaver. Drivers can make your life much harder if they aren't feeling helpful, and AVD Camp made my life so much easier. I moved this first load by hand, but when he brought the second batch over, he basically spread it with his lorry, showing what a real professional can do with his tools. He also encouraged my review of the parking spacing, so we removed a few sleepers, giving a bit more space at the expense of some visitors' spaces. Don't worry, Rob, only one more lorry load to go. See what I mean? It's basically already spread. Many moments later. Let's get to that curb. So far, we've managed to avoid most of the services here, with the exception of 1 or 2 accidents early on, so I'm now very, very, very careful near anything that lies beneath. I know the rabbit warren of services better than anyone. Luckily, I found this one quickly and without issue. I want to try to preserve the tarmac as much as possible, as I don't want to redo it, as the stuff you can get in bags isn't as good as the real stuff, and I don't think they sell it by the gram. Doing my best to make them straight, level and square, or at least if none of those, then in line with the driveway. I reckon that's us about finished. The one problem with compacted all is you don't want to walk on it. I have a solution.
Do you like it? I certainly do. If this is the kind of content you like, subscribe and we'll see you in the next one.